And waiting for this thing to go live. It says it's live, but it often isn't. All right. So we're going to do an episode now on Netscape's petition. Oh, and of course the echo because my incompetence knows no bounds. And yeah, so it's on Netscape's petition, DeepFreeze, Gamergate, Gamergate happenings. And kind of a recap, because I think a lot of people dropped off the radar on this, or it got absorbed into other things. And Netscape has been active in this really from the beginning, and he's just going to give us we're have a discussion on all that sort of galaxy of different topics. So Netscape, introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Netscape. Been involved with Gamergate since about March or April of last year. So not since the beginning, but pretty close. I've been pretty heavily involved, do YouTube videos for it, live streams, launched a couple operations, things like that. That's pretty much all there is to it.
So tell me about your petition and why you think it's relevant, and possibly what's going on with DeepFreeze, or whatever. Just your pitch.
All right, Operation Icy Blizzard. I can go ahead and screen share that now if you want.
Sure.
Just 1 second here. All right, can you guys see it? I'm gonna click on my name on the bottom chat bar.
No, sir. Got a black rectangle.
Okay, never mind then. Just won't worry about it. Well,
Well,
Operation
whatever.
Icy
We can throw the link up in chat. I mean, it's fine.
All right. Well, Operation Icy Blizzard is a campaign that I'm running. It's not really that big. It's just sort of to get more exposure out there, so more people who haven't even heard about Gamergate or the social justice warriors can sort of jump in to discussion, find out what's going on, and maybe we can, even if we convince only one person, that's good for me, good enough for me. Just basically get more information out there. It doesn't really cost anything to run. Very easy. It's just a Thunderclap campaign we're doing, and a couple people made videos about it already, myself included. So it's just sort of, if you haven't heard about it yet and you're a gamer and you're interested in,
Did he drop off?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think I cut out. If you're a gamer and you're interested in either gaming or censorship or just games journalism and finding out that these sites are corrupt, by all means, come talk to us about it.
So let's talk about this. So I think a lot of people were previously aware. I mean, most of us came out of the whole Gamergate thing, or at least came together as an aspect of that. What has really happened? Because I mean, there was all these sort of mea culpa things where they said that they agreed to some sort of ethics policy, and then things calmed down to a certain extent. Would you say that any of that has actually held, or have they backslid on it?
Well, I mean, obviously, a lot of the sites are different. Some of them actually did hold their end of the bargain. They actually did enforce ethics policies. Sites like The Escapist, I think, did a really good job with that. But other ones like Kotaku and Polygon, it was just basically, oh yeah, sure, we'll go ahead and put our ethics policy in place, and we'll go ahead and say we're going to enforce it, and then 6 months later, they're caught doing the same exact shit that they were doing in the first place.
Well, I'll tell you this about Kotaku and Polygon is I'm actually okay with them being as biased as they want to be, so long as they are upfront about their bias. And I think that at this point, whether or not they want to admit to their bias or not, it's kind of common knowledge, isn't it? I mean, maybe I'm projecting. Do you think everybody knows that Polygon has a political angle?
I think, yeah, most people would probably see that. It's pretty obvious when you visit their site. Obviously, there's some other issues though. I mean, I'm okay with them expressing social justice opinions or reviewing games from a social justice perspective, right?
Right.
But you also run into other issues like. 1 second.
The domestic abuse has begun.
1 second.
Well, I mean, one of the sites that I've got a problem with is Ars Technica, and part of what kills me with them is they actually put out a lot of content I like. Oh, now we're losing him. So I'm just going to sit here and talk to myself then. And it's hard. I can't boycott them. They have too much stuff on their site that I like.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, sorry, my Wi-Fi connection's really horrible right now.
Oh, you're on Wi-Fi. What a noob.
All right, can you guys hear me? Am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're fine.
What was the last thing you guys heard?
You were saying that there was some backsliding or something from Netscape. What was it? Kotaku or Polygon? Some one of those.
Yes. I mean, of course, the big one would be, well, the big ethical violation that Polygon was just recently involved with was one of their own writers wrote a book, and then they shilled for the book on Polygon, and it wasn't disclosed that it was by the author, and he actually wrote the piece, and it said Polygon staff was the author. It didn't say that the guy who actually wrote it was the author. They later changed it, but they didn't add any update saying that they changed it.
Yeah.
And that's after we called them out on it, of course.
Yeah. I mean, so correct me if I'm wrong. To call them out on this, you actually have to visit Polygon to do that.
Yes, but most people use AdBlock with Gamergate. Very few.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not talking about denying them ad revenue. I'm talking about saving your eyeballs from the Polygonness.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sucks you have to visit the sites, but I mean, I think you should have to call them out. I mean, whether we like it or not, they are a fairly popular site, or at least.
Yeah, what's their traffic these days?
Yeah. I'm actually not sure what their
traffic is. Do you know what their
traffic
analytics are?
I don't.
They're probably better than this channel.
Probably better than my channel too.
Yeah, but yeah. So does anyone else want to chime in on any of this stuff?
Well, one thing you were saying earlier though is that you know, everyone knows that they're biased, and that's true. But they still have an impact through something that they probably shouldn't, which is review scores.
Uh-huh.
And I think that if you're going to do a review,
are you talking about Metacritic?
Like Metacritic, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're going to do a review from a political perspective, one, yes, you should absolutely disclose that. You know, this is a review from a Christian or a conservative or a liberal or a social justice perspective, right?
Right.
But not only that, but I think you should delist it from a Metacritic site, because it's not based on review of the game anymore.
Or review
it's
the game
based on
twice. I mean, that's what the Christian gamer guys do, right? They review the game from multiple perspectives, and they'll say, well, from a Christian perspective, this game isn't great, but from a non-Christian perspective, it's amazing.
I'd come from that from a different perspective. I think Metacritic shouldn't be really a relevant place to go unless you're looking for the consumer opinion. If you have your own biases, and we all do, you're going to already be following either an individual or an organization that does game reviews. So if you are a social justice warrior type, then you're going to be absolutely fine with the reviews that they do, and you're going to look for something in a game that, for example, I'm not. So whatever score they give the game, and they say, yeah, yay social justice, this game's right up your street, then that's pretty much what they're meant to be doing, isn't it?
So I mean, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong on this, do you think that the game review numbers should not be conflated into general statistics?
Absolutely not, because it's a subjective opinion. I mean,
all opinions are subjective.
You would literally have to make the argument that all of those games were written from an objective perspective in order for an amalgamation of scores.
Right. So, like, for example, if you had a verified player Steam score, I think that's not an unreasonable statistic. But the score that comes from the weighted score that comes from some of these review sites, and then they're all sort of conflated into one big number about, like, this is what the reviewers say. I mean, I think that number is complete bullshit.
Where your problem lies is, and this might take a while to kind of explain, so I'll try and condense it as much as I can. But you have an authority that is inferred upon somebody who is writing for a site or who is known as a journalist in the field. And the reason that there is a kind of a meritocracy in terms of how reviews are done is that there's an audience out there. You know, that there are people who are literally going to either stop listening to you.
So wait. So let's pull that back. So you're saying, what if you weighted the reviews by the number of people that actually, by the analytics of whoever's actually looking at those reviews?
Well, no. My point is where I'm going with this is that any kind of site like Metacritic it's largely redundant because the basis on how you would review a game. Let me put it another way. The reason why user reviews are largely something you can ignore is that the way that your average user tends to criticize is often farcical and nonsensical.
Well,
and
yeah,
so
sure.
you'll get if you take a look at Steam, for example, a game on Steam that has a crap ton of negative reviews.
Okay, but if a zillion 15-year-olds like something and you're 15, then there's a good chance that you're also going to like it.
Then you should have a look at those things that appeal to yourself, which is why I don't get my gaming news from Kotaku, because when I read a review from Kotaku...
Well, that's where we're just spiraling around back. So Netscape, sorry, I want to try and keep you as central as, because here's a problem we have. We cycle around, we bring people onto the show, and then we just talk to each other. And the guy we invite on just sort of sits there mutely, waiting for him to get his shot, and it never happens because we're just so used to interrupting each other that it just doesn't occur to us. So update us on what's been going on. So there's a thing that happened with was it Polygon or was it Kotaku where the guy threw the book
Polygon.
on?
Yeah.
It was Polygon. Okay. So what else has been going on?
Well, I mean, I'm not really in this more for the ethics. I mean, obviously, I think ethics are important in that journalism is garbage. Most journalism these days. But, I mean, I did not get involved for the ethics. I mean, I think that we mostly won on the ethics front. I mean, this ethics policies are a step in the right direction, but unless they enforce them, they're useless. But at least then we can say, look, you broke your own rules.
Do you actually think it was an ethics violation?
I think that it was, like, you know, obviously if they would have updated and said, oh shoot, you know, we meant to disclose this, we're going to go ahead and put it in there, and they went ahead and did that, I think that wouldn't be an issue. But if they're going to basically write an article promoting a book by one of their people, and the article was written by the author of the book.
You're preaching to the choir, but I guess something that I felt when I was watching this whole shit show spool out the first time was that it was less an issue with them not being aware of the ethics and more an issue of there being conflicts of interest everywhere that were not understood by people. And look, I think people need to sort of look at this in a different way and say, have they said there isn't a conflict of interest? And just assume that there is one unless they say that there isn't one. Like a base assumption of impropriety. As opposed to giving everybody the benefit of the doubt, you just give them the benefit of the not doubt.
Conflicts of interest aren't the only ethics violation as far as journalism is concerned.
Okay, but I'm expanding that to the notion of, say, political access to grind and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have a conflict of interest between your journalistic responsibility to report on the truth and your ideological bias to support whatever political position you're going. I would also consider that to be a conflict of interest.
Right. Well, people, I mean, really, with all media, you should take it with a grain of salt. I mean, you should be very skeptical. It shouldn't have to be that way, but I think part of living in a free society, I mean, you have to assume that these people, not necessarily assume the worst, but at least be very skeptical of the source, and be skeptical of, well, maybe this is a paid review, and maybe if you want, you could look into things more, like find out if they have a connection with the developer, maybe the publisher, and them have some sort of deal where they're putting advertisements on their publication, things like that. You can look into it, and you can be skeptical of these things. I think that you should by default, and that kind of speaks volumes about our industry, about games journalism especially, that people can't even trust these sites anymore. You have to assume bad faith.
Right. Well, no, but I think that's actually positive, and I think that that's actually something that should be more of a widespread position in society, particularly in regards to mainstream journalism. I think too often people are very credulous of these sort of information gatekeepers that publish the local paper and they tell everybody everything is a certain way, and it's not. I mean, like, for example, we're all familiar with the Monica Lewinsky stained dress situation. The New York Times had that story weeks before it went hot and sat on it. And whilst it's not a secret that they did that, I don't think that they suffered in their reputation, especially, for doing so. And the fact that that is considered to be reasonable tells you a lot about what ethics standards means in mainstream media, which, if anything, should be more stringent than games media.
Is what you're basically asking for is things like the SPJ and NUJ codes of ethics to be some kind of, well, to be codified effectively?
Well, they already have a strict code that journalists are supposed to follow, but I don't think we should have any sort of like codified in law standards of ethics. I mean, as terrible as the media is and as unethical as it is, I would much rather have them be free of most legal repercussions for their articles and for their actions, unless it's something like defamation, like slander, or libel, I guess, the media, or something along the lines of that, or if they're, let's say, doing something completely unethical, like the Hulk Hogan trial, where they published his sex tape and things like that.
Right.
I don't think they should be culpable otherwise.
I mean, but isn't this something that it can be addressed just by everyone being more skeptical?
It is. And if people would stop falling for clickbait and just sharing an article that has zero actual content, and it's just pure propaganda, or just nothing to do with the topic itself, and just some writer making a really flashy headline, or even a big part of it too is just people care more about the drama and about celebrity gossip than they do actually hard-hitting, in-depth analysis of different topics, different political issues.
This is going to spin into a different show that we're going to do later on today about trolling. And Lenny, are you still with us, Lenny, or are you just? Yeah.
Yes.
Lenny, tell the story. Was it the guy that got published as a?
Yeah. So
tell us that story, because this is sort of.
There's a Twitter account. I'm not sure if you heard it. It's more in connection to politics, but his name is Conservative Pundit, and he's sort of a Twitter troll account which sort of parodies the Never Trump side of the GOP. And he actually managed to get an article published in the Daily Caller, and afterwards, I think it was it was a very short time, but it was actually no editor's note, but they had to put one in because the editors had to say, "Oh, actually, sorry, this is actually a satire article. We didn't notice." So because he was so good at sort of trolling his way into the paper, into the publication, he managed to write an entire satire article without the editors realizing somehow. That happened. So yeah.
Well, there's also the Sandy Beaches incident. You guys familiar with that?
I remember the name actually.
Sandy Beaches.
They were the anti-SJW who purposely wrote articles for various, like I think it was the Guardian or one of them. They got published, and then later they came out as a giant troll who was just trying to fuck with them and see how low their standards would be.
Right.
It was something. Sorry, go ahead, Wayne.
It was Mark Ankachich, however you pronounce his name, the guy that got fired over pro Gamergate position.
Right.
He's Australian, I think.
So there was also a case we had. There was also a guy, I forgot his name, and he pretended to be a white nationalist on the Daily Stormer. Then he was also a Jewish activist on Huffington Post, and he had like multiple places where he was posting articles that everyone thought he was.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
I forgot his name. Was it like
Goldbug? Was his name
I think it was I think it was that guy, and he managed to like publicize all his articles in like numerous things. Anyway, it was actually even sort of like it was actually, I think he even had like some articles where he was attacking himself in like the other articles. It was amazing.
So this gets to sort of this would be my appeal. So this is yet again, I'm just going to impose and project my bullshit on other people. So I'm sorry, but not sorry.
I don't think you need to make that disclaimer in this group.
Yeah, but see, one of the things that I like about Gamergate originally is that it wasn't asking for anybody to do anything. It was the consumer was going to do something instead. And what the media would have to make an argument for why anyone should give a shit about them again. And I guess one of the things I like about these troll arguments is that they create a situation where if the media organizations do not have a reasonable standard of ethics, they will get made to look like horses' asses over and over and over again. And the story will just be, every day, what giant tools they are.
Yeah, the thing is, though, the public just doesn't give a shit. Your average person, even your average gamer, doesn't really care, though. No matter how many times you point out their bullshit, they're just not going to give a shit.
No, it's not a question of pointing out their bullshit. It's a point, like, so for example, we have these examples of people intruding themselves into these spaces and misrepresenting themselves and then putting out a really hyperbolic, exaggerated sort of stereotype of whatever it is that the media organization is looking for. And then they come out later and they say, haha, it was a joke. And it makes the media guys look dumb. Even amongst their own set, they'll still care amongst their own set.
Well, there was still there was another instance similar to this. It was the Sokol affair. Are you familiar with that?
No.
So basically, a scientist, I forgot his first name, but his last name was Sokol. He actually published an article in some scientific paper about how gravity is racist or something. This was like in the 1990s, and they completely published it and went along with it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of trolling actually of scientific journals lately, but carry on.
Gravity was a social construct or something.
Right.
And he published it. He got it completely published. All these high claim, published in several journals. It turns out that it was complete bullshit. He made the whole thing up, and he did it just to see how far people would be willing to go, just to confirm their own biases, rather than actually try to care about the actual research and be objective and get to the truth.
Right.
And they passed the peer review process and everything, and they all, because they didn't even check it, they didn't care. They just conform to their worldview. They want to believe that everything is relativistic, that everything has no real intrinsic value. It's all given to it by us.
Yeah, no, the peer review process is getting lampooned by I think particularly in medicine. There's a big problem with it, where people are basically pushing a lot of sort of snake oil theories, and it's just blowing through all the peer review, despite having nothing behind it besides for a lot of technobabble.
Right.
So I mean, that's not, and I think one of the responses that we're seeing to that is there's sort of a move towards, I guess they call it open peer review, where what you do is you publish your work prior to peer review, and then sort of a social network of scientists or whoever can get into the group, which is fairly expansive, can comment and review it, but the journal itself, I think, is open to everybody immediately on day one. So you don't have to pay a subscription to a scientific journal to be able to read more than the abstract, for example.
Right, but at the same time, though, I mean, if you surround yourself with in your scientific community, quote unquote, you surround yourself with people who already agree with you and hold the same worldviews, you're going to run into the same issues, even if it's an open process.
Right. No, I mean, obviously, certain cultures or whatever, but you can't. you can't do more than have everything be transparent.
Right, and it should be more transparent, especially
And
since the public
an open
has
journal,
no-
say whatever criticism you like of it. At the very least, it's completely transparent. And one of the criticisms, and this, I'm sure some academic or scientist is going to tell me, well, it shows what I know, and maybe they're right. But I think that there is something of a problem with the people that review in peer review not putting their name on the peer review. It's like Bob submitted this thing to be reviewed, and who reviewed him? Anonymous. And that I understand the arguments in favor of keeping anonymity of the reviewer, but I think it creates more problems than it solves. Honestly, that's just me.
Right, I would agree with you too, and it holds them accountable too.
Right.
So if they have a track record of completely fucking up all of these peer reviews, then you have somebody to blame. It's not just anonymous.
Exactly.
Oh, well.
Yeah, so these bullshit medical peer reviews that are going through these medical journals, who's the motherfucker that keeps signing off on this thing? There's somebody there.
So you have the same problem there as you have with journalists. You have this implied authority that is conferred upon the scientists who are able to peer review, no matter what their station actually is. So they're all protected by this blanket where every single one of them has exactly the same voting power when it comes to peer reviewing a journalistic piece, or an academic piece, rather. And yeah, it's the transparency thing. Again, this goes back to the SPJ Code of Ethics. The transparency of how you obtain your material in journalism, and the non-acceptance of gifts or bribes should be intrinsic to any journalistic endeavor.
Or just assume that they got bribed. Or just assume they did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I think that's half the problem is that people look at these guys and they assume that they didn't. What if you flip it around the other way? The problem goes away.
Right.
And I don't have to beg and plead for them to be honest people to do that. I can just go, boom, and now I see it that way, and I'm done.
Right.
So you wanted to talk more about some of the other happenings with Gamergate. I mean, obviously, I'm not sure when you guys, when each of you sort of dropped off or stopped paying attention to it as much. So, do you want me to start, like, since SPJ, or should I start since the SPJ?
Yeah. That's a good signpost. So yeah, since the SPJ thing.
It was in August 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the previous year. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was not the current year.
Well, ever since right after SPJ Airplay, I mean, it did die down quite a bit. Twitter, especially the hashtag.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people either they lost interest or they moved over to Reddit. Reddit really blew up over the past pretty much last year,
Right.
with most of the Kotaku and Action subscribers actually signing up in the past year, not the past not August 2014 or September 2014. So that's really an interesting.
Is Kotaku
change.
and Action's like laser focused on Kotaku, or do they expand it out to sort of cover the whole sort of Gamergate thing?
It covers all of Gamergate, and it also covers like the college campuses and what's going on there
Okay.
with SJWs and censorship.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, Kotaku and Action really blew up because, especially since with the Reddit happening, there's just been a lot of Reddit censorship,
Right.
and Kotaku and Action was one of the very few places that allowed you to talk about that issue, because you get censored everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So it really blew up because of that, and also because of things like the Overwatch controversy. But ever since SPJ Airplay, there was like 2 or 3 months where it was just like very little was going on in Gamergate. There was a few different ideas put out there. One of which was the Gamergate comic strip by Captain Carbine.
Uh-huh.
Or no, it's a cartoon series. My bad.
Okay.
He actually got a few people together and he wrote a story. He's going to be making a comic series or a cartoon series. I'm not sure what the release schedule is going to be, but he says he already got the first episode already written. He's got voice actors and everything. And he's actually going to be like having people play Sargon of Akkad and all this stuff in the cartoon.
Very cool.
So it's supposed to be like really really good, and he's got Michael Godfrey. That's one of the artists, and he's a pretty good artist.
Yeah.
There's very much been a narrative, I think, in that time frame that you speak of, where a lot of the prominent figures, and it's interesting you mentioned Sargon. Their narrative was basically, well, Gamergate's kind of done its thing, and we're all moving on now.
Right.
Sargon was all been done with.
Well, Sargon was you're talking like the Game Diviner post.
That and just there was a gradual shift, I think, over time, where Sargon and many others went from, okay, Gamergate's like this super important, huge thing that's happening, to, okay, it's done what it set out to achieve.
Right. There was.
Gamergate's done. We're moving on to other things, and they've moved on, and Gamergate's not part of the discussion anymore.
Yeah, Sargon and a few others did that, and part of the reason they did that though was because there was sort of a push by these this sort of extremist group in Gamergate, and they wanted to purge anyone who wasn't pretty far right. They wanted to purge liberals like Sargon and people like that, and they were hassling him for months. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like the revolt crowd, but they were on him. They were on him for like the past like
what
9 months.
What was the thing they wanted to purge him over? What did he do or say that they were like, oh, we got to get rid of this guy?
They think that he's a cuck and that he's trying to push a narrative that.
What narrative?
The narrative that all liberals aren't SJWs, that some liberals are good guys, and he thinks that. And they think, obviously it's a group of people, so it's not all. They don't all feel exactly the same way, but
right.
But they seem to view that all liberals are SJWs, and that liberals like Sargon are only they're SJW lights. They're distracting you from the real issues.
You also have the conflict between Gamergate HQ and Revolt.
Part of what drives that is there's a
it's accurate.
Well, there's an impression that identity politics plays an important role in a lot of mainstream politics, and whilst people would not want to call themselves an SJW in one circumstance, they might, for example, say that one person or another is Hitler because they don't agree with a certain, say, welfare policy, or they want to change something with taxes. And it's very common in American politics, at least I can't speak to world politics, but in American politics, it's very common to see mainstream media and politicians basically throw out some ad Hitlerium thing on somebody just because they're making a policy dispute. And once you get really used to that, when you start dealing with the SJWs, who basically accuse anybody who disagrees with them as a rapist, it all kind of reads the same way. And maybe that's not fair, but that's kind of how that looks to a lot of people.
Right, and a lot of people sort of, myself included, I am considered an SJW by some of these people, yeah.
Okay.
Because I've criticized the Red Pill subreddit.
Okay.
And things like that.
Right.
And I mean, these are actual misogynists.
Well, wait, no. Why? Okay, so you were called a misogynist for saying what? Well, fine, whatever. So you got lumped into this thing because you said X or Y. Like, I mean, the context of all this stuff is important because a lot of times what happens, and this is, I think, part of why everything gets so polarized, is that everyone wants these like political battle lines. And it becomes very black and white, even when it's kind of gray. And so I guess, do you have the context on all that?
Well, like this is like a 9-month-long battle that was going on.
Right,
it's pretty much over now. I think that the revolt people have mostly given up, and since most of the major e-celebs have, and also the moderators and stuff like that at Kotaku in Action. And everyone's pretty much like sort of condemned with them since they've started openly supporting doxing now, and nobody wants anything to do with that.
Yeah.
So, but really,
depends on what you mean by doxing. Like, if you're talking about like swatting some dude's house, that's one thing.
Well, they allow direct links to people's addresses and things like that.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean that sort of shit is obviously threatening. But for example, something that is often cited as doxing is disclosing pertinent personal information that reveals conflicts of interest.
Oh yeah, that's bullshit. That's not
Right,
doxing.
but that is often called.
And, you know, if it's
doxing.
somebody's address, their phone number,
Yeah.
then yeah.
Yeah. No, if it's made with the intent to sort of silence somebody and intimidate them, that's one thing. If it's done with the objective to say, okay, you say you don't have this conflict of interest, but here's a piece of information that demonstrates you do. That's come out a couple times where memos have been disclosed, emails have been disclosed, and that is frequently called doxing as well. You know, like when you do like an email dump that shows a back and forth between people, that shows a relationship that wasn't previously seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like so. For example, you know, the whole Games Journos Pros was cited by a lot of people as doxing when that came out. Because
right. I remember that.
Yeah, right. So I mean, there's like a thing. So it depends on what you know what the intention is, and it's never that clear cut. I find there's always sort of a context to it.
Right. It really depends on the situation. But I mean, they were linking to people like people's doxes, and they were saying, "Oh, I'm gonna send pizza to you" and stuff like this
Right.
on their forums.
Right.
It's just like, yeah, no, we
Right.
just. But for me,
I agree.
I was with them. I was actually with the Revolt people for a while. For like probably 6 months. Gosh. And you know, because at the time, it was just sort of they weren't really that extreme at the time. Most of them were just like, oh, you know, we all care about the cause. We're all gonna work together.
Sure.
But as time went on, they became more and more obsessed with Sargon. Like I was in their private team speak groups and stuff like that. And
Right.
it's just like Sargon. It's like, and I wasn't like defending him like a white knight, but I was just like, you know, I don't think he's done anything really wrong. I mean, you know, you can disagree with him, but that doesn't mean he's a cuck. That doesn't mean he's an SJW. Why can't we just have a civil debate about this, right?
Well, I think another. I mean, look, so there's like different things. Everything has a reason, and I think a lot of the reasons why people will go after Sargon and will be upset about him is that he is very much a centralizing figure to the whole thing. He sort of became the guy, but he's not everyone's guy, despite being the guy. And so I guess there's a lot of people that sort of reject him as the face.
Right.
And
well, look,
but their rejection maybe is rejected, and so they get frustrated. And so sorry, Wayne.
No, let's not focus too much on Sargon in terms of cause and effect here. What you've got developing there, it's one of the reasons why I stopped taking much of an interest, or as much of an interest in Gamergate, is this whole polarization was just yet another example of identity politics and in-group, out-group bullshit that started kind of rearing its ugly head. About a year ago, I seem to recall, it might have been a bit earlier than that, which completely detracted from any kind of positive outcome that Gamergate could possibly have hoped to achieve, because they were too busy infighting and too busy trying to, like, you know, like you say, purify, determine who actually is a good, sound, reasonable, and acceptable Gamergater, and who is a heathen and should be purged.
But wait, where do you stand then on? Well, I'll start with you next, Dave. Where do you stand on the whole internet aristocrat thing, fallout? Because I think that was probably where the infighting sort of began, or at least became really obvious that it was happening.
Well, I mean, that was before my time with Gamergate, but I mean, I'm pretty well read on this.
Wait. When did Internet Aristocrat drop off the net? It
was October or November 2014.
Yeah. Right. Not 14. No, he was in 15.
No. Well, I mean, he came back a little bit and he talked about Gamergate, but he did not consider himself a supporter.
Yeah, it happened in 2014.
Yeah, it was 2014.
Way back.
I mean, he would still talk about it a little bit in 2015, but he didn't like support it. He was just talking about it on his live streams and stuff every once in a while.
Right. Maybe I'm a man out of time.
Yeah, I mean, I was also on the TV Speak server where you're talking about. I spent some time talking to a lot of Revolt people, and no, it was interesting actually, because one thing I do think the Revolters were quite accurate by pointing out was well, this is going to happen with anyone, but there was a sort of inability to criticize Sargon without sort of being branded as an enemy. That's something that happened a lot, at least from my experience, because I did something similar, and I was very much sort of, I'm not going to say attacked, but it was like a lot of, well, I suppose, well, fanboys, but it's going to happen with anyone's channel. But I think
because Lenny, as I said, people keep on attaching their their flags to people like Sargon, and it turns it into this polarization. It turns it into identity politics.
Right. Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Part of it's just though because Sargon's got a huge base, and if he tweets out, you're an idiot, you're gonna get probably 500 people or more who see that tweet and who are gonna jump on the bandwagon, right? So it's just how Twitter works, though.
Yeah, it wasn't only Twitter though, but I mean, it was a lot of these arguments were Twitter. But yeah, no, I fully agree with what Wayne's saying. It's sort of I'm not blaming Sargon for this or something, but yeah, it was just something that I noticed, which was a lot of identity politics going on, like with people attaching themselves to Sargon. It was
but just to explain, really, again, I mean, I think it's the identity politics, and you can see it. It's still very much a big thing, and a lot of people will say, "I'm not an SJW," but then they'll go off and they'll say, "But anyone who disagrees with, this thing or that thing, well, they're Hitler." And it's like they are rejecting the pejorative because it's a pejorative, but they don't understand what the pejorative means, and they're still doing it.
Right.
I mean, would you agree that there's certainly a lot of people that are calling themselves not SJWs that are?
I mean, within Gamergate or at large?
This is another thing I guess I wanted to talk about was we talked about this a little off air. I think a lot of the reason why the air got taken out of Gamergate was because it went general. I think that the feminists in the Gamergate situation, they called for help from outside of the gaming sphere, and all these elements from outside of gaming intruded into Gamergate, and then that drew the rivals of those factions, and then Gamergate just became a subset of a larger, I don't know if you want to call it a culture war or whatever, but it got pulled into a more generalized conflict.
It's not necessarily that they did that. It's more that they took the conversation away from where Gamergate was at its strongest, and they took the conversation to places where it was basically them standing on a platform, informing people what was going on. So you have, for example, the UN. Whilst the UN itself is a powerless waste of time and space, they do get a lot of publicity, and people listen to the story that's happening, people that aren't familiar with Twitter, people that aren't familiar with Gamergate, and they hear about all these hateful gamers and how they're all a bunch of evil misogynists and they're attacking women and women are unsafe and all that other bullshit. And that becomes the narrative that they hear. They don't hear any counter-argument because there is nobody making the counter-argument that they can hear. And that's the narrative. If you want to talk about the fight of Gamergate, Gamergate's losing. They're fighting a losing battle.
I disagree.
No, they're fighting a losing battle in the sense that it is impossible for them to fight against what they're actually fighting because they're targeting entirely the wrong thing.
Okay, well, what do you think Gamergate is targeting that's the wrong thing then?
Well, they're targeting the media outlets.
Okay. So, Netscape, what are your thoughts on any of this?
Well, I mean, this is a lot bigger than the media outlets, of course, and we did lose a lot of steam because of people focus. Well, they forced us sort of to focus on other issues, but we also kind of wanted to though, like Shirtgate, the Protein World incident, obviously the college campus things, everything that's going on there with censorship and the SJWs. I mean, they have sort of broadened their horizon. Now Gamergate is more focused just on gaming, but for a while there, it was everyone was still doing this under the Gamergate label. Like Protein World was part of the Gamergate conversation, right?
Right.
And I think that you can share that on the hashtag, post about it on the forums. I'm not going to obviously try to censor you and stop you from posting about it, right? But I think now we really have an opportunity to really focus more on the gaming issues, and we can fight both on the anti-SJW war while also focusing on like the censorship issues. And I think that once we've started doing that in the past 4 or 5 months,
maybe look at this. What if it was always a larger issue, and we only noticed it because it intruded into our space?
Well, that's true. It is a larger issue. This is something that's been going on for it's been building for years. It's just a powder keg, and that Gamergate sort of sparked it.
Right. So, but I mean, if this is just one Hydra tentacle that has found its way into our space, do you want to just talk about this in that space, or do you want to talk about the Hydra?
I think we should do both, but I think that they're sort of two separate issues. Because they're connected. They're not like separate. I'm not making.
Well, I don't see how you can protect our space if you don't deal with the Hydra. That's just my.
I know. I think because like on my channel, I do videos on SJWs at large.
Right.
And I also do videos on Gamergate specific issues.
Sure.
Or at least what I would consider Gamergate specific, which is like the torrential downpour campaign. Recently we had a developer of Tales of Berseria. The developer said that they're not going to censor their game. And this is huge because Japanese game developers actually coming out and saying, they actually said, we think the fans want the original experience.
Right.
That's huge because up until this point, very few developers and publishers from Japan were actually willing to actually talk about this.
Right.
And talk about the localization, bastardization, and all that stuff that's going on.
Right.
So I think that once we started focusing on that with like torrential downpour, we really started to pick up speed again. We actually reached out to a lot of Japanese game developers. And we got people like Ronin Works.
Well, that was one of the things that was going on with Gamergate, was that there was this misrepresentation of who is and is not the consumer. Because one of the things that the SJWs were trying to do was they were trying to say that they were the consumer. Now, I don't question that they buy the game or what have you, but they can't represent everybody, and there's certainly a lot of people that disagree with them. And to say that they're the only important element in any of this, or that the other elements should be ignored because moral impropriety that they invent, is absurd.
This is exactly where I was going when I said that they've been fighting a losing battle. You're at a position now where you have a lot of things that are going on between gamers and developers. And look, we've tied this, and we've spoken at length before about the rise of independent markets, independent content producers in markets, and how everything's kind of becoming decentralized. And we're not really consuming the same way that we did 10 years ago, not even 5 years ago. Things have changed drastically. And where the fight is to be won is very much, as you say, and as is beginning to happen, is with the developers themselves, the people producing the content. If they know that the die-hard, hardcore gamer for life is going to spend their money on their product rather than on the competition, on the basis of the competition is including these social justice themes or is censoring on the grounds of social justice, then they're going to listen.
Look,
because money is more important to them than some ideology.
Everyone has their own thing. What I like is not going to be what somebody else likes.
Absolutely.
It's when you get like one guy that stands up and he says, "I am the truth," right? That everything gets out of control because, he may be his own truth.
Oh my God.
But that's it.
Well,
okay, Lenny. All right.
No.
Hit me, buddy. Am I just triggering you with
No. It's just the way you phrased it was pretty funny.
I know. That was
pretty funny. But yeah, no. But there's sort of when it comes to these sort of ideological. Well, in the gaming community, I'd say these sort of SJWs. I'm not sure how large proportion they are of the gaming community. I would bet they would be a minority, but
they're definitely not a majority.
I don't think they're a majority, but I don't think we can also underestimate. I think there definitely are a bunch of them, and it's just they seem to have a lot of influence over some of these. I'm very happy that there have sprung up a couple of sort of alternative gaming sites.
Well,
After,
but it's the political correctness. They
Yeah.
they all sort of bandwagon on the political correctness, and I think they do that because there's a wider political and ideological alliance that is that links together on that basis, and I think it just needs to be understood that that exists and that that's a thing, because a big element with this I'm an SJW, I'm not an SJW thing is there are a lot of people, I think, that are, and I'm not imposing this on you, Netscape, this is a perception I have. There's a lot of people that don't want to be associated with the SJWs as a term, but when it comes to actually doing things, they operate on the same intellectual basis.
Right.
Is that something you would give any weight to, or do you think I'm out to lunch?
I mean, there are some people like that. I think that it's very, very few, and I don't think that people like Sargon or a lot of the other people like who they've accused of being this.
So here's one of the things that I had. I'll give you my personal one of the things he did that irritated me. What do you think about his Hiroshima video, or not his Hiroshima video? Was it Nagasaki? Was it
I saw. Was that the Okinawa? Video?
Okinawa. There you go. It was the Okinawa video.
Well, I didn't see the video. I saw the live.
You should see it.
Was it the video?
You should see the Okinawa video.
I did a response video to his Okinawa thing.
You should see it.
Is it the one where he basically calls Americans imperialists?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a response video to that. It was one of my first videos on this channel.
Yeah. So.
But he actually was willing to defend his point.
Well.
And he was willing to have a debate about it. So if he was an SJW, he'd block everybody.
No, SJWs will fight sometimes. I mean, look, they will block when they think they can get away with blocking a lot. And I'm not calling Sargon an SJW, okay? I'm just making the point that you can fight for your position and still be an SJW. That's not like an either-or thing.
But I'm not sure that makes, like, holding in a position like that. I don't agree with him that Okinawa makes us. I don't think that makes you an SJW, though. That position isn't even a very extreme one.
What's the basis? Well, what's the basis? Wait, you're saying that it's not an extreme position to say that the United States is oppressing Japan by having a Marine base in Okinawa?
Well, his argument was that the majority of the Okinawans on the island don't want the base there.
Yeah, but it's Japan's island. The government of Japan wants the base there.
It's an opinion of somebody who I have repeatedly said is politically very, very naive. I don't think that makes him a social justice warrior.
I mean, okay, so like let's look at a different situation here. Let's say you have an Air Force base in Colorado, and the people that live in Colorado don't like this Air Force base. Is the Air Force base oppressing the people of Colorado?
It might not be oppressing them, but I mean, don't they have a right to sort of have their voice heard and be represented by their government?
They are though.
But they're going to be outvoted by the rest of the country.
Well, sure, the people in Colorado might get outvoted too. Look, having representation does not mean domination.
But it's also their land. I mean, this is sort of the states' rights versus the federal government sort of situation.
Okay, sure, no, that's great, but that's not the way that Japan is structured. I mean, Japan doesn't have a state system, right? It's a unitary government.
It's a region. It's still people in a region, though, who have.
Okay, well, look, I live in one region of my city, right? And if I want this city government of Los Angeles to have a different policy than they have everywhere else in the city, just in my little part of the town, and I get everybody in my little part of town to agree with that, it doesn't necessarily mean that the rest of the city is going to say, oh, you guys, you're going to get what you want.
Right, because then it's not fair to everybody else in the city.
Well, maybe it's not even a question of fairness. Maybe it's just they don't care. Yeah, but let me tell you, Los Angeles truly does not give a fuck about me. It's like amazing. I could hit them in the head with a rock, and their head would slowly turn at me, and they might notice that I exist.
Let's rewind a second. I mean, what right are they having infringed by having this airbase near them?
Uh-huh.
Well, none really.
Yeah,
it's just well, Sargon actually did say that the property rights, because the base has gotten larger over the past several years, well, past couple decades, and they've actually used like basically the Japanese version of eminent domain to take people's land,
Right.
And expand the base.
Sure.
Okay,
So that was his argument.
That's pretty bullshit. I mean, how
That's not the United States, though.
How does their system work? I mean, do they? Yeah, I mean, it's the Japanese government.
Oh, they
That's
get
the Japanese
compensated.
government.
They get compensated by it, but
Well, yeah,
they get
and let me tell you, how many
compensated
states in the United States get paid by the U.S. federal government for hosting a U.S. military base in the state? Would you like to know the answer to that? The answer is 0.
Yeah, if these people are being compensated, and that compensation is compensation that they accept, then there's no oppression taking place. If they are being forced off their land and it's against their will, then they have a problem with their government, not with the American.
Yeah, at no point does the United States government enter into this. But look, the point was not to micro in on this one issue. The point was to give an example of a pretty SJW thing to talk about. Now,
I don't remember the video,
I wouldn't call Sargon an SJW. However, I think that in this particular case, he picked an argument out of a bag and didn't read the label very carefully, and he didn't realize it was made in SJW land.
And as I've said, Will, these arguments happen quite regularly when Sargon dabbles in politics.
And I'm not saying this to beat up on Sargon, okay? No. That's not my point. My point is that people are not credulous in a lot of cases when they go and they look at these arguments. They hear this thing blown around on Twitter or something, and they go, oh, that's an idea that seems reasonable to me, but they don't look into it in enough depth, and then they start mimicking it, and they don't realize they are literally saying the same fucking thing that would come out of Trigglypuff's mouth.
But right, listen.
Would Trigglypuff not agree with that position? Let's stop right there.
No, but that's not relevant. It is relevant. The important distinction here is you've got to look at motive, and I would contend that Sargon's motive is getting content onto YouTube above and beyond everything else. Yeah. It's what he does. It's what he does, as far as I can tell, as his profession. I'm not going to count the game's design until such time he starts shipping units and making a profit off it. Now, his motivation for putting out content is, okay, I found this interesting story, I'm gonna comment on it. He's not going to have the same kind of level of rigor as you're going to find in, say, science. He's going to go there, he's going to look at it, he's going to construct an opinion, he's going to fire it out onto the internet, and it's done with. His motive is pretty much that.
All I am saying is that if you do not want to be conflated with an SJW, it helps to not sound like it.
Sure, but let me finish where I'm going from.
That's not really an argument, though. I mean, because, okay, let's take another example, not SJW, but let's say neo-Nazis, right?
Yeah.
So let's say neo-Nazi would probably agree that urban, black culture is a problem, right?
Well,
so does that mean anybody who criticizes urban black culture is a racist or a neo-Nazi?
That's a great point. And if you look, the way that if you do criticize, like if you look at the whole Black Lives Matter people, right? Anyone who says, actually there's certain elements of, say, black culture that are contributing to urban blight and whatever, and sort of the situation that black people will often find themselves in. That there are anyone who says that, I mean, I'm sure there's little parts of your brain right now that are like, oh my God, is Will secretly a neo-Nazi, right? And the thing is that naturally that's there, and it's because we all have this walk like a duck, quack like a duck kind of mental process, which even if we try and subvert it with sort of an intellectual framework, it's just part of the way that human beings think.
It's also part of the way that they've been raised to think. But no, look, let me finish where I was going with that. What my suggestion was going to be, if you want to criticize Sargon on anything, it would be that he is guilty of the same editorial laziness that those websites are that allow those articles to go through, without checking them to see if the guy that's posting them is in fact full of shit or is some kind of false flag operation.
If we want to be clear on the whole Okinawa thing, I believe it immediately followed a kind of an awkward interview he had with Alec Baldwin.
Right.
Wherein, I don't know, they got into some dick measuring contest about the U.S. versus England or something, and I honestly, I think the context of the Okinawa thing was like, oh yeah, you Americans are terrible though. It's like, let it go, Sargon.
Sargon does
Just
that.
let it go.
He generalizes. He really doesn't like the American. He says he doesn't like the American government, but really, I think a big part of it is he doesn't like our culture too.
Yeah, which, you know who also doesn't like our culture?
SJWs.
Yeah.
But well, that's
No, Hitler did. There you go. No.
It's not like.
I'm just saying.
But I mean, there's, you know, he has a right to criticize American.
Oh, sure.
There are things that are probably wrong with American culture that are really dumb.
Uh-huh.
Our obsession with celebrities, for one.
Well, what he's trying to...
No, but that's not that's not what he would throw at us on that. That's
He would say more. I'd say probably our.
Yeah,
our
he would sit there. He would pull out Norm
policy,
Chomsky's book. He would pull out Norm Chomsky's book and just read down the index.
Okay, but anyone who criticizes American foreign policy isn't a Norm Chomsky freak or something. Also, something.
See what's
I don't
happening,
like
what's
Norm
happening here?
Chomsky.
And there's a
What's
lot
happening
of
here
American foreign
is-
policy.
We're getting more flags pinned to more masks here that are all largely arbitrary and meaningless.
No,
Yeah.
I know, but this stream of consciousness of what I'm going at here is I'm trying to make it understandable and comprehensible why someone would associate these things together, because if you sort of play a word association game with all these little events, there are statistically consistent flags that come up over and over and over again.
But the thing is, I would
human thought processes are very associative.
I would advise those people to practice skepticism and to do so, you know, in all cases, in a way that not everybody does. Hardly anybody does.
Also, just okay. Let's say hypothetically, though, let's say Sargon is making an SJW argument.
Okay.
Shouldn't you, even if it is an SJW argument, shouldn't you address it on its basis, on its merits? And that goes for everybody, not just him.
I know.
I'm just saying, but people are trying to dismiss, oh, he's an SJW because he made this argument. Not
Right.
you, but you know, in general, people saying that and things like
Well,
that.
right, but
they try to address the argument and just leave it at that. Don't.
Okay, fine, but then by that basis, I mean, should we call anybody an SJW?
Well, if you want to have a civil debate, probably not.
I mean, right. So I mean, to save Sargon from being called an SJW, we might literally have to not call Trigglypuff an SJW.
Well,
No,
I just want to understand
here's where I would draw the line.
weight of
If
this.
they're willing,
this
if
boulder
they're
here.
willing to actually come together and have a civil debate with you about the topic,
Yeah.
then I probably wouldn't call them
So,
SJW.
all right. So
If
it
they're
seems like for you, the line on SJW, not SJW, is whether someone will actually engage in a thoughtful discussion.
No, in an honest discussion.
honest discussion.
Well,
Because if they're willing to keep an open mind and at least accept the possibility that they may be wrong, then they probably aren't an SJW. They're
right.
probably just misguided.
If
How
you,
about the
I mean, but how many
SJWs?
SJWs are just misguided? I mean, come on.
how you look, there are degrees of.
I'm not going to look at Trigglypuff and think.
There are those.
informed.
No, there are those who are simply naive pawns, and there are those who are a bit more nefarious.
Yeah.
The point is, if you're in a conversation with somebody and the conversation pretty much revolves around you rebutting every single one of their points with data, and then ignoring that data, then that's the point where I start drawing the line. That's what I mean by an honest conversation. If somebody's actually willing to have their ideas challenged and to doubt themselves, then they're very unlikely to be a social justice, because part of that mindset involves the fervor of self-belief and belief in doctrine that you're following.
And they'll accuse you of being a
religious
racist
thing.
instead of...
I disagree, actually, because there are many people who you could classify as believing in social justice and that are not, dogmatic, inquisitors who want to censor other people.
No. It's not about censoring other people. It's about holding to their doctrine. Those people, if they are unwilling to accept a challenge to their ideas, the idea that they might be wrong, then those people are almost certainly social justice warriors.
But everybody has a certain point of, well, I don't know if everybody, but most people tend to have a certain point where they establish a certain amount, ideological framework from which they start their certain beliefs in certain areas. You can't
Did they
just.
form themselves, or was it handed to them by another ideologue who follows the same beliefs?
It doesn't matter.
Here's the other thing, right? There are two kinds of ideologies. There are those that you arrive upon yourself, and there are those where other people are doing your thinking for you. And if other people are doing your thinking for you...
How can you derive upon yourself an ideology which, I don't understand. All ideas come from, exchange of ideas anyway, so...
Right.
So I don't understand. What, do you think that all people who have an ideology, that, you can have an ideology without... completely from your own personal accord, or
let's take feminism. Can you question feminism?
No, you
Well,
can't.
yes.
Well, you can, but
No,
not being called
no.
a misogynist.
Yeah, can you question feminism as in the ideology feminism as a feminist within a feminist society? Is it something you can question and say, I think you might be wrong on this?
I think you can.
Really?
To a degree.
There are people who say.
All right, so here's something that actually might be incisive here. Does the discipline, whatever it is, permit dissent?
Exactly.
And it seems like that might be a point where people can kind of come together a little bit.
But there's also other things too. Like, let's say there are some topics where if you oppose the mainstream viewpoint on that topic, let's say, you would be considered a racist, and I'd probably even agree with you, and probably most of you would agree with me too. Let's say slavery. If you're defending slavery,
right?
You're probably.
What's that got to do with race?
No. I can be obnoxiously open-minded.
Yeah. What does slavery have to do with race?
I can find a justification for
slavery.
Let's focus on the African slave trade, okay?
No.
I think that's what he was referring to.
No. Okay. Look, everything's going to be contextual. Right? There's a situation where cannibalism makes sense.
Yep.
Eating human flesh, right? It's a very extreme situation, but it exists.
So I understand. I understand that, but under normal situations, generally, it's not okay because it implies killing.
Well, under normal circumstances, it's not right to put somebody in jail.
I think that's a different aspect.
No, it's contextual. Alex,
that's a good point, though. It is
contextual.
Yeah, well, no,
Alex, it's contextual.
But the problem with cannibalism...
Alex, I swear to God.
It's like saying, well, killing people is wrong, but in war...
Alex, enough. I don't want to do that, okay? Don't talk over me when I'm telling you nothing. All I'm saying is, it's contextual. Like, sometimes you owe me $5, right? Because I gave you a sandwich. Other times, I owe you $5. I mean, everything makes sense in a certain context. Like, slavery, shorn of any other context, is bad. And I'm in no way justifying any particular incident of slavery that's ever happened, right? But let's take let's say the Roman application of it, where they used slavery as a mechanism for dealing with debt, for example. Somebody borrows a huge sum of money from a guy, and his credit is literally, I'm going to be your slave for 5 years if I default.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the dude signed the contract. He didn't have to sign he signed the contract. So that's all.
But that's not even really slavery though, because they agreed to it.
Yeah, but you can't. You're locked in. You try and run away, motherfucker. You're gonna get whipped.
I mean, there are businesses like that today where you can't legally quit the company, and if you do, then you have to be silent about their dealings, like
sure,
things like that. Or you can't work for a competitor for the next.
So
you're signing
slavery.
So you're signing away your civil rights to free expression.
Involuntary slavery based on race.
Right.
Like anybody who defends that would probably be called a racist, right?
I have a difficult time finding a justification for it, but given that I could find a justification for cannibalism, I am very I am cautious that I wouldn't be able to come up with that there might not be some crazy situation where it makes sense. I can't think of one. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
I can think of a few kind of nuanced ones, but I'm not going to go into too great a detail about it. The point is that what you're talking about there is having a specific opinion on a specific thing, and you're creating the nuance by basically framing that particular subject. So in order for it to be something that everybody agrees on, you have to kind of box it into this very specific corner where there aren't any. You're basically creating a scenario without any loopholes. You're taking the nuance away. There's always going to be nuance, but the point that I would make is that every idea that is put forward should be challenged on the basis of that idea, and not on the basis of the kind of people who have also suggested that idea. I think that if you want to be an egalitarian and you want to be a skeptic and these things are important to you, then this whole nonsense of identity, this person believes this, therefore they're that, it's complete bullshit. You challenge the idea, you don't challenge the person.
That's beautiful on paper, but in reality.
No. If you want to be vigorous and intellectually honest, it's not just beautiful; it's the only option. How other people behave.
I'm not referring. Of course, you have to analyze an idea based on the merits of that idea, and not on the person who actually exposed those ideas. The problem is that you will always need to contextualize the idea on a broader, broader sets of ideas that person exposed.
But again, it comes down to the individual. I mean, you're still relying on them to give you the information. I'm not saying that those people can't still be wrong, for example. The point is that what most people do is they hear certain catchphrases, buzzwords, certain data points that they have in their brains they associate with certain things, as Will was saying. So a certain kind of argument comes across to person A as that person is a social justice warrior and not to be trusted and not to be listened to.
Yeah, I agree. That's just bullshit, of course.
Yeah, that's the mentality that you need to avoid. And I think that we were talking about revolt earlier. I think that's one of the problems I had with that particular group is that they created an in-group and everybody that wasn't part of the in-group was part of the problem.
Yep.
The problem that they manufactured.
Yeah, exactly, and I think the important thing with all this is to understand the basis, how people are forming. I guess Wayne was talking about motivations, but I would look more at just my own personal bias as to what is informing their internal logic. Like if they actually had to sit and diagram out if-then to arrive at their conclusion, I'd kind of like to look at the code, because sometimes you look at it and it seems to conform very rigidly to a certain ideological orthodoxy, and then you'll ask them about it and they'll go, well, no, it's just self-evident.
Well, I agree with you, Will. That my point being that I think if you were to take Sargon to task about anything you disagreed with them on, you would have grounds for a conversation, and you would get to see the gears and what have you at work, and you would actually understand why he's arrived at that position. And it might well just be as simple as, well, maybe I gave it less thought than I should have done, and that's why I came at what you perceive as to be the wrong opinion. And what you're describing. And I'm not trying to be, play devil's advocate for Sargon here, more to the notion of what it is we're talking about. But I think you would find that in his case, most of the time he'd be pretty transparent when it came to his reasoning. You would be able to actually, you'd be able to actually infer what was necessary to infer if you just had a conversation.
Right.
Really, Puff, though, if you tried talking to her or Zoe Quinn or Anita Sarkeesian, you would not get that.
Right.
I don't know about Trigglypuff because we don't know her.
Trigglypuff actually.
Shouted down people. I mean, that's a.
Hasn't she done some interviews? I thought she did a couple interviews on YouTube with a couple people.
She also
That was
showed up
parody.
with some
That
lawyers.
was parody.
there were some parodies.
There was parodies. That was not real people.
So somebody linked me to one, and it was clearly either
That was parody.
it was either a guy faking a woman voice, or it was a transgender person faking a woman voice.
Yeah.
I don't know, but there was a soft-spoken male.
Yeah, I think what we talked about literally said it was parody. But I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Twigglypuff, but I mean, Twigglypuff was willing to shout on people with different opinions. So I'm not sure how responsive she would be to anything that challenges her ideology. I'm not sure. But I couldn't make that judgment about her. One thing I do, Nick, is that she's a very beautiful woman, and no.
Oh, Lenny, always thinking with his other head.
Yeah. So, is there anything that you wanted to say, Netscape, that you or did we take it? A vulnerability of this particular group is that we are prone to take things in fucking bizarre directions, and it generally baffles people. So, if you wanted to bring us back into the Milky Way galaxy.
I don't think it is bizarre. I think that what we touched on a great deal here is ethics. And
Oh, no. It makes perfect sense to us.
Yeah.
We're from the Kalian galaxy, and
No, but
no one understands what we're talking about half the time.
It was a very interesting discussion, actually.
I don't want to do Netscape a disservice and say that he, was unable to kind of.
No. There's no slights are being offered. I'm issuing a slight at myself, at my shitty inability to manage a group and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to impose what is interesting to me on what is interesting to you. You tell me. We've invited you into our house here, and if you wanted to tell us what you found to be interesting, or not about us, about whatever you want, wherever you wanted to take this.
Okay, I've got about 15 minutes, so
yeah,
we can talk about. Get back to Gamergate. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about there. We just spent 40 minutes talking about Sargon, so it shows you how big this sort of discussion can be. I think that now
you brought Sargon up, motherfucker.
I did. But
yeah, there you go.
No, it was an interesting discussion. We got to talk about what makes someone an SJW, and how to deal with that, if at all. So I think that was something that we should probably have more discussions about. I think that now, though, we sort of moved past the drama with Gamergate, because, like you said, there was drama at the very beginning with the Internet Aristocrat quitting. Then there was sort of, then it sort of died down with the drama for, I'd say, 6 or 7 months, at least from what I've seen. And then when the revolt versus Sargon versus HQ versus Key, when that happened, that was pretty big. But
you also had some crime happening.
Yeah, well, I would consider that part of that.
How much of the reaction to Internet Aristocrat leaving, though, was just a massive overreaction? I mean, isn't he pretty much renowned for going, I'm tired of being in the limelight, I'm a private person, I'm out of here. And he's done that, I don't know, 20 times.
Yes. He's got so many different channels, or he did.
Yeah.
At some point. It's...
Is he? I'm always out of the loop on this. Has he moved away from the Mr. Medicare streams?
No, I think he's still on there. No.
Is he still on that one, or is he like on a new one now?
He doesn't do the live streams anymore, though. I don't think the Meadowcast.
Let me see.
I haven't seen that in ages.
I've seen it because it was on one 2 months ago, but.
Right, the last video he did was the Washington Post Michelle Fieldstein. That was the last one he did. That was 2 months ago.
Yeah, that to me tends to mean that he's moved on to another one, and yet again, motherfucker has not told me what his new stream is.
He had the best live streams back in the day. I actually got involved with Gamergate in no small part because I loved watching his streams.
Yeah,
and I'm
he's a funny guy.
I want to do that. That's what I told myself. I saw his streams. I'm like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Mr. Medicare is still very active on his Twitter, though. So I'm just saying, he still the same Twitter account. He didn't put it on there. Yeah.
But ever since I think the turning point though, with Gamergate in the infighting thing was the Lily Fang situation.
Oh right.
If those of you familiar with that, a
yeah,
Gamergate person killed herself, and Ralph Retort published an article, 3 articles actually. Attacking the boyfriend, attacking. It was bad, and some of the revolt people, not all of them, some of them were sending train pictures of being people being hit by trains to her boyfriend.
Aw.
So it was just, I think that was really the turning point of when people said no, not anymore. And then it just sort of seems like we really have a lot of momentum going again with people like Captain Carbine and the
Really? So talk
like
about
that.
this new momentum, because I've missed this.
Maybe it's just because of the people I'm talking to, but especially I created a Discord group of my own.
All right, so you're on your own Discord group. What's going on?
Yeah, and we have maybe 125 people.
Nice.
So it's not that big. It's pretty small.
Uh-huh.
But we talk about Gamergate happenings and things like that. And a lot of the people involved with that, and a lot of people I've been talking to just on the side, they seem to have like a renewed energy. We've got the cartoon strip, the cartoon series, actually an animated series coming out.
Right.
And we've got a lot of new operations being proposed. People like Lesnar, people like Captain Carbine, Myriad Truths. It seems like they've been putting a lot of work into just building new operations. And
do you think maybe that now that the drama's died down and the distractions have gone away, you're left with the people who are actually, looking to make positive changes and to enact positive things?
Yeah, that could be it. That's probably it. Because a lot of the people who were involved in Gamergate, they didn't really do much. Like, no offense. I mean, people, they all contributed their own way. But a lot of people, they're just like, oh, I'm going to go on Twitter and...
It was mostly shitposting, wasn't it?
Shitpost a lot. Now a lot of those people have moved on. And we're left with the people who are like, okay, now how can we deal with publishers doing day one DRM? How can we protest this? How can we, raise awareness about localization in games and how it's censoring content?
Well, yeah, but I mean, how do you deal with day one DRM? Because I'll tell you how
Boycott is one idea.
Oh, fuck that idea.
That was interesting.
Here's my solution. Here's my solution, and it's 100% effective. I wait 1 year.
Yeah, but the thing is that doesn't change the fact that millions of people are still effectively being ripped off.
Well, that's their fucking problem.
Well, the thing is,
why am I going to fight for their rights?
So they're going to cater to
you're
those
a libertarian, Will, so we know you're not going to...
I know!
Yeah, so, so one thing I wanted to mention, actually, when you mentioned boycotts, is that I remember when Battlefront came out, there was a lot of, I'm not sure if it was drama, but a lot of people, specifically Revolt-type people, wanted to boycott, and a lot of people I saw were saying, oh, we can't do boycotts in Gamergate, we can't. And I find it quite weird, actually.
There's Loping. Did you see Loping's video on the boycott?
Yeah, I think I did. I know Loping has a lot of issues with Revolt people.
Yeah, he does. So do I. But his video, though, he actually makes a pretty good argument. And again, I'm not sure, like you said, you see an argument and you think, oh, that sounds good. What's the reality of it, right? He made the argument that a lot of the Revolt people, and I could see this, that they're just using this as an excuse so that they can later push for boycotts of social justice games. And I actually don't support that at all. I think that social justice warriors should be able to and should be encouraged to make their own games rather than trying to pressure current developers into changing their artistic vision. I think that they should make their own products for themselves, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. And talking to the Revolt people, talking to a lot of them, I don't get the impression that they think any social justice game is okay. I get the impression that they don't support.
Wait a minute. What do you think about Sargon's petition then?
The universities, I think that's different. I think that.
Oh.
No, hear me out. I think that video games, they're art, and people should be able to create the artistic games they want to create, and that's okay. But universities, I think if their university is publishing lies, like the 1 in 4 rape statistic and things like that, pushing an agenda that is completely not based in reality, then they should be held accountable, and then they should be shut down.
And one that is palpably either sexist or racist. And is sexist or racist along ideological views. This was actually the subject of one of our recent streams. And our conclusion, I think, was pretty much
We actually did basically almost 2 streams on this one.
pretty much, yeah. And our conclusion was very much that ideological viewpoints, group ideological perspectives should not be enforced on university students. That doesn't mean that they don't belong in universities, though. If somebody wants to choose to sign up to brainwashing camp, then that person fully has the right to do so. But they don't have the choice, and that's the issue that we have.
And another problem is publicly funded universities. If the taxpayers are paying for these classes,
Right.
and those classes don't reflect their views, and you're pushing an ideology that they don't agree with, then that's I'd say wrong.
I know.
That's the thing.
This bump for getting rid of universities. Boop.
If a private college wants to offer a social justice class or a neo-Nazi class, even, it's a private college. They have the right to do that.
Well, even a public college, like I say, the issue that we, I think, pretty much universally agreed to on our stream in this group was that our problem is that people are being forced to take those classes. They're being made mandatory classes, and that's where we draw the line. The notion of removing it completely, likewise, I wouldn't remove Bible studies classes from any kind of college if there is demand for it, because it's a market. It's a marketplace.
But should it be taxpayer funded? Should the taxpayers?
No. Is the taxpayer funding that class directly, or is the taxpayer funding universities in general?
Look at it this way. Okay, so the primary benefit of the taxpayer money to the university is the tax-exempt status, the land, the building, sort of the facilities and the infrastructure.
Right.
If you actually break down the money that goes specifically for that class to be empty for an hour, once a week, and for a professor who might not be getting paid that well in the first place,
right?
It's really not that much money. No. And if everyone wants to fucking go off and watch that, then whatever. I mean, look at all the nonsense that universities fund, from an entertainment standpoint. Where your tuition will go to some dumb concert that you may not even want to go to. I mean, how many concerts you don't have to pay a ticket when you go there, and people think that they're winning because they don't have to pay the ticket price. Well, motherfucker, you had to pay it got deducted from your tuition. You could fucking hate the band. You're paying for that shit anyway.
So I'm going to look at the other side of this, and I'm going to briefly put on my games reviewing hat, and this is my take on how it is in games. Social justice isn't something which belongs in the majority of game worlds, where the game world is not intended to be a reflection of our modern exact society. So if you start, for example, a prominent example of this was the Baldur's Gate issue, where they created basically a standalone social justice infused edition of Baldur's Gate. And social justice, in the way that they injected it into the Baldur's Gate universe, absolutely does not belong there. So it's not a question of whether or not they should be allowed to do that. The question is whether or not people will respond to that by not buying their games anymore. And I, for one, won't be spending money on that product, and I'm pretty sure that many others have boycotted or instantly demanded refunds on the
I mean, it's everybody's choice, but it's like one of the things that was so, and this is Netscape. Don't let me boycott the conversation here, or bogart the conversation here, but it was the bogart the conversation. But the whole thing where the gamers that are your current consumers don't need to be your future consumers. That was one of the pitches made with the whole "gamers are dead" thing.
Try coming up with that suggestion in, for example, I don't know, a McDonald's meeting.
Oh no, they did try that. No, they did try that.
Your customers don't need to be the same customers tomorrow.
No. Remember how McDonald's was trying to sell everybody like apple slices?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it didn't go out It didn't work very well.
That's probably more of an excuse to give people like, oh well, I want to eat at McDonald's. It's healthy now, when they really know they want to lie to themselves, the customer.
No, well, also what they wanted to do is they wanted to get the trendy crowd that was boycotting the restaurant in there, and they didn't understand that part of how the trendy people were defining themselves was by not consuming that brand.
But Will,
it wasn't just I'm healthy. It was
This would be more analogous though to somebody going into McDonald's and saying to them, right, I've got this wonderful idea and I think you should try this. Instead of serving people beef burgers, you should replace the beef patties with some kind of vegetable product. And that would be a better analogy.
Did that 30 years ago and hasn't told anybody.
Okay, but you know.
Well, I wanted
theories aside.
I wanted to go back to the issue of comparing Gamergate with the issue of the universities thing, because I mean the conclusion we arrived more or less was that what Dwayne said, that we should give more options to the students. But the thing about a petition like what Sargon has proposed is the fact that who is going to decide what is, right or wrong to teach? Who is going to do that? I don't trust a person like Sargon to do that, because he actually proposed the freaking petition. I don't trust someone like Anita Sarkeesian, who is going to decide what is correct, the right sort of games to play or not. That's the same thing, and I'm not going to share that. I believe that.
Well, to be fair, Sargon did say that this was a purposely exaggerated petition, and it was just.
I think that's bullshit, because I think he did a really badly done petition, and then he changed his mind and tried to pull back, then said, "Oh no, it was to provoke a debate," when in truth it was just going over his head. But
to be fair to Sargon, if he went into this clear-eyed, understanding the fact that he wasn't going to achieve anything with this petition other than discussion, then he's kind of got a point.
Well, what is the discussion about how we should decide and control what people say in classrooms?
No, about how social justice courses are corrupt, how they're teaching.
Yeah. Well, listen. There was I'm going to tell you that there was something related. There was in the academic world, there are many cases where people publish bullshit that later are disproven and are abandoned. And this won't be an exception. People believe that this feminism craze is gonna last forever and change our world, when in truth what I only see is the hysterical people in universities that don't see the real world are going to go out to the real world and change their minds very quickly because they have to eat. And I'm not threatened by those idiots. Something worse, there was a case a few years ago when a really top biologist published an article in Nature, if I'm not mistaken, a peer-reviewed article, where he said basically that AIDS treatments are not useful for anything. And it was later proven to be bullshit, but it didn't prevent the government of South Africa to defund AIDS treatments to its people.
Okay, but that
is worse.
Here's the problem already. Here's the problem already with the opposition. Okay, you're arguing that they have to come out of college and feed themselves. Well, in order to get a decent career and to feed themselves, these students are being forced to take mandatory classes that are literally attempting to brainwash their ideologies.
Are they though? I have not seen any of these classes. Not on my university, at least.
Wait.
Not in all universities.
Whoa. Which university are you going to?
Yeah.
Is it a top secret? Give me the state name. No? Too close?
Have we lost Netscape?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, I'm not. Well, I'm sorry. I go to University of Missouri. Obviously, I'm not going to say which one, but
okay. So
I've not seen any of
okay. Wait a minute.
I did take a gender studies class just to see how fucked up it was, and you know what? It was. They didn't have. It was an optional course, but they had. Well, I needed to take care of a communications credit.
Okay.
So
Okay, so now what is it? What were the various things? What were the classes you could take to satisfy a communications credit in your
That was one
particular
of them. One
university?
of them was gender communication. Others
Okay.
were like oral communications 2. You had to
Uh-huh.
take 2 communication classes. I took one oral communications 1. There's also oral communications 2. And then there was like gender communications and like one other one.
Uh-huh.
And
So there were so it was one of 4 classes you could have taken.
yeah.
And okay, so I had in my university I had sort of like a culture is what they were calling it credit that I had to take, and it was a list basically of SJW shitty classes and like so I think I took the history of race in America. It was a really hard class. It was legit difficult. I had to read about 150 pages of history material every week to stay current. It was rough.
Can I ask you something?
I had to write this giant essay. It was awful. What?
Have you been brainwashed through that class in order to believe all the bullshit that they're saying, or did you like?
I got into.
Did you like think for yourself and found out that it's all stupid?
Okay.
Are you asking?
Are you conflating? Are you
conflating
conflating me with the rest of humanity? Because that's a mistake.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the rest of humanity is, most of humanity tends to have a tendency
I think what he's asking you, Will, is whether or not you're wearing a kilt.
Obviously, I didn't buy into the whole thing, but the thing was that there was a deliberate attempt at multiple levels of my education to impose an ideological framework on me.
But that's all education. All education.
Okay, fine.
Especially in the humanities.
All right, Alex. The difference is that they are not overt about it. They don't say, by the way, this is the framework we're gonna. It's subversive. They go in and they use the fact that they've been given authorization to teach X and Y to teach Z. Okay, and that's the issue.
Did the teachers force you to conform to their views, or were you allowed to openly debate it and question it?
You were not allowed to openly debate it. You were morally judged for contesting anything. Everything was so. For example, we had these long discussions about whiteness, what it means to be white, and of course, what it sounds like it's a racial thing, but it actually is a cultural thing.
Yeah,
is how it's ultimately like if you break it down into what they're talking about. But if you point that out, you're pointing at the emperor with no clothes on, and you get shit on, and that was a thing. And it was just a really I sat through this class, getting lectured to by a Korean lady about whiteness, and it was just endless, and it's not uncommon. My brother. When he went to university, he took the history of jazz, which was a vastly more intelligent course to take in that context. But you have to take one of these culture credits, and they're all it's always like some race gender thing. All of them, and this is California. I mean, I can't speak anywhere else, but my own experiences. But I guarantee you, it is definitely being imposed in certain universities.
It certainly is. I mean, it's less of an issue in others, and bravo to those universities. It should never be something which is anything other than optional.
Look, I'm gonna tell you my experience. You already know that I took my own courses. I never took any gender course. Mm-hmm. I didn't have there was an option. It was, gender history of that and this. And but I never took one, and never had the necessity. And I don't know. It's just that we have something that is called freedom, academic freedom to express whatever you want in a certain framework, as long as you teach what the course is. The syllabus is telling you. And there were always in history of academia those movements that they coerced you into conforming into a certain set of beliefs. And
but this isn't the same thing. This isn't the same thing as actually forcing it on people. I don't disagree with you, Alex. There's always going to be, in any social environment, there will be people who put themselves up on a pedestal as the moral arbiters.
But what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is that the answer isn't, blocking them, suspending them, basically saying you have no right to say those things. As long as the more open it is, the better it will be. Because then they will have to confront their own ideas.
But
what they want to do is to silence that. What?
But this is the problem, Alex. Like, we've been over this whole thing, and the point is that in those situations where, or those circumstances where it isn't an option, where you absolutely must go and sit through this and endure it, and go through the peer pressure of not being able to question the narrative that is being.
Hey, Netscape, sorry, Wayne. Netscape, do you know Twilight? He's in chat. He's asking to get in. You can throw the.
Yeah, I know him.
You can throw him the link.
I was going to mention
if you want to.
Well, I'm going to be heading out in probably like 5 minutes, but if you want to have him on, yeah, he's a cool guy.
We can continue with.
Oh no, I'm not asking you to vouch for the guy. He's saying that he wants the link for the stream, and I should just give it to you. You obviously already have it, so.
Yeah, do you want me to send it to him?
Yeah, go nuts, man.
All right.
Anyway.
Have we had a brony on here before?
We really should have a brony.
Well, I think he is one.
Oh yeah.
Do you have a brony?
Bam.
Wow.
This shall be the interview of my lifetime, so I can.
Well, we'll break that off into a different show if we're gonna do the interview with the brony.
I always talk in jest.
And hey, actually, he's the guy who did a live stream with Mr. Mediker.
Oh yeah, cool.
Okay.
We shoot him the join link real quick.
Yeah, go nuts. Just give him a link. I don't care who gets it at this point. It's whatever.
But I went dead.
Well, it went dead because I was listening to you guys go back and forth. But
yeah.
So did you guys? Did you guys finally come to your crescendo on the whole academic debate?
Well, it's not even a debate anymore. Like I say, we went over that ground, and I think that the agreement. The
ground has not been salted. It has not been salted.
No, I think we pretty much salted, burned.
By the way,
tipped the blood of dead kittens.
Oh, Twilight Sparkle's with us. What's up, Twilight Sparkles?
Jokingly, get ready for me to leak the stream and have 20 trolls come on here.
Excellent.
Oh, why would I have a problem with that?
Well, there are certain trolls who, how do I put this? Play porn, to get your channel.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm only joking,
like
man.
that.
Yeah. I'm not really gonna do that. I'm not an asshole.
We've already had.
I have responses to that. It's not a problem for me.
Yeah. Last time our host Will he kept playing Miley Cyrus videos and we got a copyright strike for that.
That's kind of porn life, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was pretty much porn life. He kept playing that one stupid song with the bowling ball, not the ball.
Yeah.
Wrecking ball.
Yeah.
I came in like I forget. I don't care. She's unimportant to me.
Oh, she is.
So who is important to you, philosopher?
She is the most important person in my life.
I don't know. That's a good question, Netscape. I don't know. It's the question of a lifetime.
It is actually the question.
Netscape, you said you're going in about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So a question, I guess, relevant to myself. I don't give a fuck about the audience or any of these other shitlords. What can we do now in order to kind of get involved in what Gamergate is doing, and where are you guys hanging out, and pretty much what is happening? Where's the party at?
All right. Well, a lot of people are hanging out on Reddit, Kotaku in Action. Also, my Gamergate Discord group, which is open to pretty much anybody. Obviously, if you break the rules, you're gonna get banned. But
so do you wanna give us the link for that, and we'll
yeah, I'll post it in your guys' Discord.
Do you want that to be made available on the chat stream, or is that a little too much exposure?
We've had a
total of like 5 people that might additionally see it.
We've had a lot of trolls come in and start spamming it with
And they just banned them, so it's fine.
Yeah.
The ban hammer is
frustrated.
there for something, for a reason.
But if you want to get involved with Gamergate, I mean, really, the main
I'm
thing is
gonna,
that.
I'm gonna go have lunch. Sorry, Netscape, but I'll be right back.
I see.
Aww.
Well,
The main things that we need
welcome.
right now are people who are really passionate about the gaming industry, especially censorship issues. Right now, the big push is Torrential Downpour, which is a Gamergate operation to raise awareness about how Japanese video games, when they get ported over to the West,
Right.
they are drastically changed and censored in many cases.
Yeah, no,
for pretty much no reason. It's not even ESRB in many of these cases.
Right. No,
And that's
we
really
have
the
a
big
lot of
push.
anime people in our little group who have complained about various
Do
changes.
we have anime people in our group?
We
Didn't
do.
I already wipe them out? I don't
No,
know.
Well, I like
your,
anime, so.
Oh my god, Alex! Stop giving me
your
reasons.
purge was not total. They've been breeding underneath the refrigerator.
Yeah, I don't think my purging of anime has been successful in the group. I have to try again.
So
really,
my biggest criticism of Gamergate would be that historically the notion of fixing the problems that are actually in gaming itself were completely and utterly buried under all of the bullshit.
Right.
So I would like to see the opposite of that happening. That would be of interest to me.
Yeah.
Well, right now, the biggest problem I'd say facing gaming is the social justice warriors and the things that they're doing. Obviously there are a lot of other issues communities face too. A lot of these games companies are releasing broken PC ports. A lot of day one DLC. We got digital rights management with like Uplay and things like that. There's a lot of things that need to be tackled. But right now, I think the censorship and the attempts to gatekeep the industry by the social justice warriors and these corrupt journalists, that is really the main problem.
Well, I mean,
in my eyes.
That's the shared problem that's happening across across multiple industries.
How hard are they failing though at this point? Because with as level a goddamn playing field as there is these days, it's never been so level. With Steam and whatnot, you can self-publish your fucking game.
Well, they're not interested. They sort of hold the idea that video games promote or reinforce real-world sexist ideas.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not trying to. So, no, they believe a whole bag of crazy shit.
Yeah, so they don't. It's not about making their own games. It's about making it so that video games don't send negative messages to society.
You've got to think of these people
I'm sorry. So let me just clarify what I was saying. What I meant was they're failing. They can't possibly close that spigot.
But they're succeeding in many cases. Like we saw with the Japanese games, a lot of the Japanese games are being censored. They're also they're creating a culture of fear in the West also, where game developers are afraid to address certain topics and to put certain elements in their games. They can't put too sexy of a character because they're afraid they're going to get a huge backlash from the social justice warriors, possibly even death threats to their office.
Yeah.
And they don't want the PR disaster that comes with that.
Yeah.
How you've got to view these people, Will, is they're kind of like a puritanical inquisition.
Oh, I know, dude. I live with these people. What are you talking about?
I know, but this is for the benefit of anybody else listening as well, of course. Even if it's only 5 right now, no 3 apparently, according to my screen. But anyways, the point is that these people aren't interested in games for the sake of games. They're not interested in the media. They're not interested in the history of games. They're not interested in people's enjoyment of games. What they're interested in, and where their sole interest lies, is in making these experiences unenjoyable in certain ways because they disagree with it on some ridiculous moral principle. And they're having success using Inquisition-style tactics of bullying and, one might say, oppression and suppression.
Yep. There you go.
That's the take on it. So if you want to fight this, it's about being a voice, I think. It's about using your voice and being a voice and saying, these people don't speak for us. This is what we've got to say. Fuck these assholes.
Yeah, no, everyone has their own way of coming at it, I guess. I think it's very important going forward on a whole range of issues to just remain aware of how things are arriving from one place to another and why they go in these directions. and as to whatever everybody else wants as far as what happens with our society, what happens, that's everyone's personal agenda.
Right.
But just, I guess my own personal take is I just think people should know what they're doing.
Well, they should, and if they don't, that's that. The point is, if they don't, it is on them, but it also ends up being on the rest of us, because if the people who are uninitiated or who are unconcerned or just haven't been clued in yet, are making the wrong decisions based on misinformation. If you give them the right information, then there's no longer a need to worry about that, and that's as much as I think you can really do. I'm like yourself, Will, when it comes to the issues that we've raised about about DRM and first day DLC and all those things. I do exactly the same as you do, as you're fully aware. I wait until such a time as there is a Game of the Year edition on some kind of discount, and if it's a game that still interests me, I'll purchase it then, and not until then. And part of the problem is that most people can't really exercise that kind of patience.
I trolled the shit out of Eric. Who's a guy that used to be in our group. He may come back someday. I don't know.
Buying Fallout.
If he isn't burned down in Canada, he jumped on the Fallout 4 bandwagon immediately when that thing came out. And I was like, oh, it's a Bethesda game. There's going to be so much DLC. There's going to be so many mods. Why'd you buy that on day one?
Likewise, the people that were warned off buying Reunion. It's the same principle.
Right.
But the point is that it's okay for me to make that decision having been burned, but they will continue to burn everybody, and they will continue to pull out these substandard products if awareness isn't raised of that being an issue.
No, because there's a sucker born every minute, Wayne. It's never going to stop.
The market is what it is. People want what they want when they want it, normally immediately. We've moved on from Generation X to Generation I want it right now.
Nothing gets people to be cynical and careful about their choices faster than being mocked and thought less of for it.
True.
And as childish as it might seem to some, to take that as a rhetorical tactic and a political tactic, I would just point out that it's effective whilst a lot of other things are simply not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's proactive, and it's functional. And I frankly challenge anyone to come up with something that one asshole can do that is as effective as that. Netscape, I will give you the last word, motherfucker.
I actually agree. Mocking them is very, very powerful tactic. I kind of do have mixed feelings about it. It depends on really the situation. If they're not, like, if somebody's willing to actually have an honest debate, like, here's why I think that the wage gap's a real issue, and they actually lay out a case and you can actually debate them, I wouldn't really support mocking them in that case. I'd support actually engaging with them and pointing out, with
so
evidence.
So you just respond with condescending wonka memes?
I gotta be honest.
If they're not willing to engage in the marketplace of ideas, then have at it. Have some fun.
All right.
I gotta be honest. I'm skeptical of your claim that you wouldn't mock them despite that. Because
I get. Let's get the last word. Netscape gets the last word.
What are they going to bring? Well, you can still have the last word. What are they going to bring to the table that you're not going to find just cringe-worthingly laughable? I mean, come on.
Well, like, if they're actually willing to have an honest debate, though, I'm going to engage with them on that front. But if they're going to just go, "Oh, you're a racist," well, okay, I'm gonna have some fun with you.
All right. All right. I'll also Twilight Sparkle. Come on, something.
Twilight
Sparkle.
We need.
Wait, hold on.
I need a bumper out of you. Come on.
We need the brony philosophy to come in.
We're gonna end on bronies.
Well, all I can say is use your 3-pound meat on the top of your head. It's there for a reason.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the brony philosophy.
Is it weird that made me think of cheeseburgers?
I am now a convert to the way of the brony.
Bronyism.
Bronyism, indeed.
Amazing. All right.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
If you want to come on,
I'm sorry we didn't get you on here sooner. It was just, is what it is. So I'm going to kill this before we descend.
Yeah, just